Good evening. You're now watching the main news on HKIBC. I'm Vincent Chan, and here's a look at tonight's top stories. Li Qiang is endorsed by the National People's Congress as the new premier. Starry Lee is chosen as Hong Kong's sole representative in the NPC Standing Committee. And a new political dawn breaks in the Middle East as China brokers a peace deal between Iran and Saudi Arabia. Li Qiang has been confirmed as premier, succeeding Li Keqiang as the country's #2 official. The new premier will make his debut on the international stage on Monday. Janice Low reports.
任命李强同志为中华人民共和国国务院总理。
In line with expectations, Politburo member Li Qiang was endorsed as premier by the National People's Congress. The 63-year-old was congratulated by President Xi Jinping. As well as his predecessor Li Keqiang, who steps down after 10 years as China's #2. A total of 2,936 delegates in the Great Hall of the People in Beijing voted in favor of Li Qiang, with 3 against and 8 abstentions. Taking the oath of office, he vowed to build a great and modern socialist country and make China prosperous and strong.
I pledge my allegiance to the Constitution of the People's Republic of China, to safeguard the Constitution authority, fulfill my legal obligations, be loyal to the country and the people.
Hong Kong delegate Ng Qiaopei believes Li is the people's choice. Ng said Li secured a large number of votes because his ability is widely recognized. The new premier is a former Communist Party boss in Shanghai and a close ally of President Xi. They worked together between 2004 and 2007 when Xi was provincial party secretary of Zhejiang and Li his chief of staff. Li's path to the premiership was paved when he was appointed to the Politburo in October last year. He will make his debut on the international stage as premier on Monday when he meets the media after the closing ceremony of the NPC's annual session. Janice Low, HKIBC.
Starry Lee, who has Hong Kong's biggest pro-Beijing party, has been elected as a standing committee member of China's top legislative body. Lee is also the chairwoman of the Legislative Council's House Committee and will consult her colleagues to decide on her priorities. Joanna Ho reports.
李慧琼赞成2901票。
Starry Lee, chairwoman of the city's largest political party, the DAB, is the youngest Hong Konger to become a member of the National People's Congress Standing Committee. The 48-year-old lawmaker, who served on China's top political advisory body for 5 years, secured 2,901 votes from NPC members. 35 delegates voted against her and 3 abstained. Lee thanked the NPC for its support and pledged as the sole Hong Kong member of the NPC Standing Committee to serve as a channel of communications between the SAR and Beijing. My first goal is to help the city integrate into the development of the nation, Lee told reporters this afternoon. Lee said she would consult her colleagues when asked if she would consider dropping her current roles as head of the Legislative Council's House Committee and the DAB to focus on her new duties. Tam Yu Chung, who is retiring from the position, congratulated his successor and expressed confidence in her ability. Lee has contributed a lot to the development of the DAB. She also has ample parliamentary experience, he said. Joanna Ho, HKIBC.
China's top political advisory body has ended its annual meeting in Beijing. President Xi Jinping attended the closing ceremony of the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference this afternoon. Chairman Wang Huning hailed the 8-day session as a success. Delegates approved several motions, including amending the constitution to include Xi's thought on socialism with Chinese characteristics. In Hong Kong, former trade union leader Elizabeth Tang has been released on bail of $200,000 after being arrested by National Security Police on suspicion of collusion with foreign forces. The wife of former lawmaker Qiang was detained at police headquarters in Wan Chai after her arrest on Thursday. Officers confiscated her phone and passport, as well as her ATM and credit cards. Tang has to report to police next Friday. Her sister, meanwhile, and her lawyer were arrested for conspiracy to pervert the course of public justice, according to sources. They are accused of taking away items from a flat before police conducted a search. 3 former senior members of a group that organized June 4th vigils have each been sentenced to 4.5 months in jail for failing to provide information requested by National Security Police. 2 of them were released on bail pending appeal, while the third remains in custody for another case. Joanna Ho reports.
Chow Hang-tong, the former vice chairwoman of the now-defunct group that organized June 4th candlelight vigils, along with 2 former core members, Choi Hon-kwang and Tang Ok-kwan, were each sentenced at West Kowloon Magistracy to 4.5 months in prison. They were granted bail pending appeal, but Chow refused to accept bail conditions that restrict the freedom of speech. She remains in custody on a separate national security case. The trio were convicted last Saturday of failing to provide information which police wanted under the national security law. In mitigation, Philip Dykes, acting for Choi and Tang, told Principal Magistrate Peter Law that the duo are retired and have no criminal record. He said Choi has severe heart problems. Chow, who is a barrister, argued that the group was not a foreign agent and that the conviction punished those who are defending the truth, human rights, and democracy. Law interrupted Chow several times, saying her statements were irrelevant to mitigation and the court was not the place to express political views. But Chow said the case contains political elements and it was not realistic to separate the case from politics. She managed to complete her speech. In handing down the sentence, the magistrate said national security is of great importance for the public and the whole nation. He said the sentence must reflect the law's determination to safeguard national security. 2 other defendants, Simon Leung and Chantal Wai, pleaded guilty earlier and were jailed for 3 months. Joanna Ho, HKIBC.
Mainland study tours for senior secondary students will begin next month. Education Chief Christine Choi said the first group of 250 students will set off on April 3rd. About 6,000 students from 60 schools sign up for trips next month, with the number of participants in May jumping to 16,000. The tours are part of the citizenship and social development subject. Choi hopes the students will learn more about national development and the culture and history of the Greater Bay Area. 4 patients at the Haven of Hope Hospital in Shanguan-O have been transferred to another ward after an oxygen pipe broke. Repair work was immediately arranged after the incident this morning. Oxygen cylinders were deployed to ensure that the patient's oxygen supply was not affected. It's suspected that the renovation workers broke the pipe accidentally. Saudi Arabia and Iran have agreed to restore diplomatic ties in a historic accord brokered by Beijing. The agreement changes the political landscape in the Middle East, raising hopes of an end to the war in Yemen and progress in Iran's nuclear talks with the West. Sachin Kavi reports.
China has pulled off a diplomatic masterstroke by persuading two arch-enemies to make peace. After 4 days of talks in Beijing, brokered by China's top diplomat Wang Yi, Saudi National Security Advisor Musad bin Mohammed Al-Aiban and Ali Shamkhani from Iran's National Security Council agreed that their countries will re-establish relations that were broken off 7 years ago. They will also reopen embassies in 2 months' time. Sunni Saudi Arabia and Shia Iran severed ties in 2016. This came when the Saudi embassy in Tehran was ransacked by protesters after Riyadh executed a prominent Shiite cleric. The renewal of ties between the two oil giants opens a new era in the Middle East where China's clout is increasing at the expense of the United States.
It indicates that China's presence in the Gulf, in the wider Middle East, is growing. But it indicates to the US that Saudi Arabia and other Gulf partners have other options. The agreement with Iran mediated through China is just a sign that the Saudi leadership is saying, well, if you don't want to play ball, we can go elsewhere.
为实现中东地区的和平稳定打开了道路。
Wang said the Saudi-Iranian deal shows that conflicts can be resolved through talks. 2 weeks ago, Beijing proposed a pathway to peace in Ukraine. Washington reacted to the Saudi-Iranian accord with caution, while United Nations Chief Antonio Guterres praised China for its efforts. Israel greeted the news with dismay. Sachin Kadvi, HKIBC.
The U.S. government has granted a visa to Israeli Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich, ignoring appeals from Jewish American leaders to bar him because of his extremist views. Smotrich, who's due in Washington tomorrow, triggered outrage when he said the Palestinian village of Huwara should be wiped out. Washington described his remarks as irresponsible, repugnant, and disgusting. More than 100 Jewish American leaders and 3 former U.S. ambassadors to Israel accused Smotrich of racism. His controversial comments came after hundreds of Jewish settlers rampaged through Huwara following the killing of 2 Israelis. U.S. lender Silicon Valley Bank has collapsed, causing panic, mainly in the tech sector, as firms scrambled for cash.
Silicon Valley Bank was the gold standard in terms of startups and technology companies and venture capitalists. We can't pay our vendors today. What happens when tens of thousands of companies can't pay their vendors anymore because they don't have cash in the bank? We're facing something much more than just my company potentially collapsing, but something economically very dramatic.
U.S. regulators seized the assets of Silicon Valley Bank following the biggest collapse of an American lender in 15 years. Insured depositors will get their money back, but 90% of the bank's deposits were uninsured. The bank ran into trouble when its bid to raise funds to stem losses triggered panic as its customers rushed to withdraw their money. Onto the weather now. It will be fine and warm tomorrow with low visibility in the morning. Temperatures will range between 20 and 27 degrees. The mercury will drop slightly in the next couple of days. Now let's take a look at the weather around the world. That's our main news for Saturday night. Join us for more news at 11. I'm Vincent Chan. Good night.